who in their right mind uses innocent people as shield? Hey guys, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. So today is a beautiful day to be diving into the world of the Warsaw Uprising, the unstoppable spirit of the Polish resistance, extra history. Now, I have reacted so much about the Polish history, and the more I hear about them, the more I am fascinated. But I don't know what this video contains, so let's explore it together and know more about the Polish history. Stick around with me to the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this YouTube channel. I'll see you at the end. Let's go.
For 5 years, execution, torture, and vicious oppression has been the fate of the Poles. But resistance, the will to fight the Nazis who occupy their homeland, has been kept alive. In the face of
Yeah.
unspeakable brutality, the Polish Home Army, the volunteer force of resistance fighters secretly living in Poland, has continued to grow. For these fighters, discovery meant instant death. But with sabotage, indirection, and a message of hope for the people, they kept the Germans from ever feeling secure in occupied Poland. And now it was time. Russian shelling could be heard in the streets of Warsaw. Liberation was at hand. But the Home Army wasn't going to wait for the Russians to march into their capital and return to them whatever portion of their country they felt generous enough to give. The Warsaw Uprising was about to begin.
You see, right from what this narrator just said right now, I can actually pick a few points, and that is true. I At that point in that history, if they had actually waited for um, an outside force to actually help them recapture their lost city or their lost country, at the end of the day, it is those outside forces that will actually decide how much of their country they get to keep. And I understand, as a true patriotic citizen of your nation, you don't want that. You don't want to be under the thumbs of another sovereign nation when you are just fighting to maintain the freedom you deserve. Sorry for that first. Let's continue, please.
A few months ago, James was invited to Poland to attend one of their massive game jams and observe what they're doing to help grow the games industry there. With any luck, he'll get back there for their game jam in September, and I'll be hiding in his luggage to go visit my homeland. Because while in Warsaw, he fell in love with the city and its history. So much so that he worked with the folks running the game jam to help sponsor this special episode so he could talk about one of the greatest tragedies of the 20th century. So, let's begin. August 1st, 1944. The Allies
That
have
was a long
landed in
time.
Normandy. Rome has fallen, and the Soviets have pushed the German war machine off Russian soil. And in Warsaw, a people oppressed for 5 long years are about to rise up against their oppressors. But what precipitates this is the approach of the Soviet army, because the history between the Soviets and Poland is a fraught one. In 1939, as allies of Hitler, Soviet forces stormed over the Polish border, taking Poland by surprise and collapsing Polish defenses. Up to that point, while not winning the war against Germany, the Polish army was taking their toll, slowing down German forces and making them pay for every inch of ground. But to
Yeah.
do this, almost all of their forces were sent to the west, never expecting an attack from the supposedly neutral Soviet Union. When Soviet forces poured over the eastern border, it spelt the end for the Polish army. 2 weeks later, Poland would.
Wait. I'm confused about something, right? Um, I think I've reacted to a video that talks about how many people lost their lives. Sorry, how many people that were unalive during the World War II. And in that history, they never mentioned anything about the Soviet Union actually invading Poland or anything like that. I think what I had in that video was the Soviet Union, you know, confronting the Nazi as of then. So hearing that they actually attacked Poland right now is a kind of like a bit of a surprise for me, because this is the first time I'm hearing about this. And you see, this is why history is, you just have to keep on researching about it to keep getting the knowledge and the insight from each perspective to know what actually went down on that day. And I'm really very, I only thought it was actually the Nazis that actually invaded Poland. But hearing that actually that the Soviet Union also played a part in that is really disappointing though. So sorry about that, pause. Let's continue, please.
surrender, and more than half would be annexed by the Soviet Union until they in turn lost it to the Nazis, double-crossing them. And while not as systematically
Wow.
brutal as Nazi occupation, the Soviet domination of Poland was still horrific. They rounded up and shot 22,000 Poles in the Katyn forest. And even when they joined the Allies, they refused to acknowledge the legitimacy of the Polish government in exile. All of which means
Like for real? Like honestly, I don't know about this part. I don't know about this part. Everybody keeps on pondering about the horrific crime that the Nazis committed in that era, and nobody mentions about this one. Like who buried it? Because I feel like it's buried because every single um video I have done on this World War II did not mention this fact. They only talked about the Nazi camps, the horrific things that went down there, but this side of it is totally lost to history. I didn't even know that the Soviet Union committed such atrocity to the Poland people, which is really bad, really bad. Sorry for that pause again.
that many in the Polish resistance believed that the only way they'd have a seat at the table after the war is if they liberated their own country. Which
Of
leads us
course,
back to the 1st of August. The Russians are a few dozen kilometers away. As their advance continues, the Germans are guaranteed to fall. It's now or never. It's time to rise up. The previous night, a tense meeting had occurred, and W hour, the start of the Polish uprising, was declared. The troops had trained for a surprise attack at dawn, but at the last minute, plans changed. The uprising was now set for 5 p.m. But it's hard to hide that many people spoiling for a fight. And by 5 p.m., sporadic engagements had already broken out across the city. The Polish troops were barely armed, many without weapons at all. Charging in with
really.
homemade submachine guns or captured German rifles, they took the gasworks, the power and water plants, and some vital production facilities. But they were repulsed in key locations as well. The bridges, the airport, the rail line, and the main police station all remained in German hands. Most crucially, though, they failed to link up. By night, groups were erecting barricades. The city was now divided. And though there would be some coordination and reinforcement, many pockets were now fighting in their own small wars. Then the bombs begin to fall. The Luftwaffe is laying waste to the city, not differentiating between civilian areas and those controlled by the resistance. The Polish Home Army doesn't have a single anti-aircraft gun. And all eyes look for signs of the Soviet Air Force, but no planes sporting the Red Star of Russia are anywhere to be seen. 4 days into the uprising, the true atrocities start. On orders of Heinrich Himmler, German troops begin going house to house, shooting every inhabitant they find. The old, the infirmed, women, children, all were gunned down. Over the course of a week, tens of thousands of civilians are murdered as they huddled in their homes. But the Polish resistance didn't break. The Home Army ground the Germans to a halt, though its strongest battalions were also its most tragic, the Grey Ranks. They were made up of the Boy Scouts. Older scouts were frontline troops, better organized, better trained, better disciplined than most of the volunteers. The younger members ran courier duty, while the Girl Scouts served as combat medics, nurses, and munition haulers. And they all swore an oath. I pledge to you that I shall serve the Grey Ranks, safeguard the secrets of the organization, obey orders, and not hesitate to sacrifice my life. And they would hold this oath all the way unto their death. They fought house to house, door to door.
A true patriotic spirit. When you love your nation to a certain level, every act of lies the word sacrifice that you make on behalf of your nation, you do it with a smile on your face. You do it with a smile on your face because your motherland is worth it. And regardless of how many times I've heard about the horrific event or that happened on this day, every single time I hear it again, it still breaks my heart. It still breaks my heart. It's like um I won't say I'm reliving the event because I was never there, but there is this part of me that creates a digital image of what actually went down there, and every time I see that image in my head, it is very horrible to actually remember. So I am sorry for that, and let's continue.
In the chaotic melee of city fighting. Classmates died side by side, first loves torn apart by machine gun fire. They referred to each other as bees because they were a hive, a collective, and they would sting the Germans. They fought with the fury only possessed by the young and the righteous, and they pushed the Nazis from the burnt-out remains of the Warsaw Ghetto. They cut into the German line far enough to liberate one of the concentration camps. 384 Jews who had survived the extermination of the ghetto were still imprisoned there, and they took up arms to fight against those who had enslaved them, who had murdered everyone they knew. But then, the young fighters of the gray ranks were faced with the unthinkable. Something I don't know as a human being you could face. German tanks rolled forward, but it wasn't the 100 tons of steel and death that stopped the scouts. They had faced tanks before, armed only with rifles and hand grenades. No, it was what was in front of the tanks, because in front of those tanks were women. Some burned or beaten, all Polish. The Nazis were using them as human shields. It was this the scouts couldn't face. So the advance turned to a stalemate, and still aid did not come. By the end of August, the undersupplied Polish forces had to withdraw from Warsaw's Old Town, making their way through the sewers to more easily held points. For nearly a month, the soldiers
Who in their right mind, uses innocent people as shield? Who uses innocent people as shield, for goodness sake? Don't you have brothers and sisters at home? Don't you have parents that you're using a lady, kids, as a shield? Are you not related to anybody? Did you sprung from the earth and just started existing? Come on. There are things I hear, even in today's conflict, that it irritates my ear. It irritates my ear. I find it disgusting. There are some certain things that it should not be permitted. Should not be permitted, should not be allowed. Sorry for that pause.
and many of the civilians had been living off barley from a brewery the Grey Ranks had captured early in the fighting. Soon even water was scarce, with waterways clogged with corpses, and Germans cutting off remaining water mains as they advanced. At last, on the 15th of September, Soviet forces appeared on the far banks of the Vistula. A crossing attempt is made, but Soviet command only sent the lightly armored division of Polish volunteers who had joined them after the fall of Poland to try to relieve Warsaw. Of the 1,600 men who went, more than 1,000 fell to German guns. The Soviets decide that a crossing was impractical, and no further attempt would be made to aid the Polish partisans. Meanwhile, America finally attempts an airdrop of supplies, but 80% of it is accidentally dropped behind German lines. American forces will not try again. The resistance is shelled day and night. Great mortars with shells 2 feet in diameter rain down on them. Rockets slam into the few remaining upright buildings, and tanks hammer away at foxholes for scouts armed with no more than rifles. The Germans advance on the Mokotów district. The resistance is pushed back.
Do you know that till today, right? Every time I see or I react to a video talking about the how beautiful Poland is, okay, it will never come to your mind that Poland actually ever went through something like this. That there was ever a time that something like this was done to them, and it is so
They enter one of the
amazing.
major
It's so amazing to actually see that, regardless of all this horror, regardless of all this disaster, that they came out at the end of it stronger and more resilient. So it is truly amazing that they persevered, and I'm really happy for them, because honestly, with the amount of destruction I am seeing on this, no one can survive it. No one can survive it. Let's be frank. I know that I can't survive such horror, and even if I do, there will be a series of nightmares, a lot of mental breakdown that will come along with it. So I'm truly, my heart truly goes out to the Poland people of how they recovered. It's truly amazing, for real. Sorry for that pause.
hospitals under Polish control, and they execute every wounded soldier and all of the hospital's personnel. Again, the resistance flees through the sewers, but 150 of them exit too early and are killed by German troops. The Poles now control only a few square blocks right against the river. They were surrounded, starving, outgunned, and outnumbered. And yet, they fought. Not like bees, but like wasps. Every house was a stronghold, every doorway a bunker, and they fought within sight of the Soviet army across the river. Yet no aid came. They fought with the determination of the damned. They fought and fell. The outcome was inevitable. Surrender had to come. Germans wary of fighting and interested in concentrating on the Soviet threat offered terms. The entire population of Warsaw was to be expelled, but no one was to be executed. The terms were accepted. The resistance fighters spent their last days forging documents for the Jewish members among them. 15,000 of the Home Army were taken away as POWs, and 500,000 civilians were shipped out of the city. The lucky ones were simply let go, with no homes, no food, no jobs. But 60,000 ended up in the death camps, and 90,000 more found themselves unloaded at forced labor yards. And after the surrender, Himmler said, "The city must completely disappear from the surface of the earth, and serve only as a transport station for the Wehrmacht. No stone can remain standing. Every building must be razed to its foundation." And in one of the last great acts of senseless destruction perpetrated by the Nazi regime, German engineers took flamethrowers and dynamite, and systematically, building by building, block by block, wiped Warsaw off the map. By the time 3 months later, when the Russians finally crossed the Vistula, 85% of the buildings in Warsaw had been leveled. Monuments, schools, libraries, historical sites, all reduced to rubble and ash. If you go to the historic district of Warsaw today, what you're actually seeing is a reconstruction, an attempt to rebuild based on old photographs and paintings. If you walk the halls of the royal castle, you're not seeing a building that's been standing for 400 years. Instead, you walk through a palace completed in 1984. And in the rubble of that city lay 70% of the young people of the gray ranks. But their sacrifice was not forgotten, for their nation still stands, long after the 1,000-year Reich was wiped from the earth.
I am lost of words. I am lost of words because after you have successfully gained the um, the country, you declare that you don't want it to be in the face of the earth. What do you gain by that? Like, I literally don't know what people gain when they thrive in conflict. I don't really get the concept of gain in that ideology. Or what is your satisfaction? You want to turn it into a train station, a full nation. You want to turn it into a train station, a prospering, flourishing nation. You decimated it, you disbanded it, you destroyed every landmark. You know, lives were actually lost on that event, only to turn it into a train station. It's quite disappointing. It's quite disappointing, you know, to know that all this was just for a train station. A train station. So, how is a human life equivalent to a train station? Do that math for me because I don't get. How is it equivalent to the value of a train station? How is it equivalent? Because, okay, let's be practical about this, right? Now, it is not only on the Polish side that suffered devastation and losses. I believe that the Nazi soldiers that were actually sent to occupy each territory, there were most of them that were actually sacrificed in this endeavor. So, all these lives was the equivalent of a train station. Where are our priorities, people? I know this is something in the past, but currently today, I believe that the same thing is about to repeat. The same thing, history repeating each other. And we forget that there was something like this that happened in the past. Look at every single life that was lost that day. Look at it. All because of what? A train station. And we're about to repeat that same mistake again. Can't we learn? Can't we learn? I'm really sorry. I'm kind of like a little bit pissed off right now. So I'm just going to end this video here and say thank you guys for sticking around to this part. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this YouTube channel because I'm really tired of hearing things like this. And please do well to use our Buy Me Coffee link to make priority requests on the next video like on this YouTube channel. I'll see you guys on our next video. For now, remain blessed and